Hello, good afternoon and welcome to News Today on your Joy News channel on Multi TV. Coming up, Progressive People's Party vows to resist attempts by Electoral Commission to bar it from contesting in the upcoming November polls. We'll bring you more on that story shortly. Also ahead, city authorities urged to do more in bid to avoid a repeat of last year's flood and fire disaster. And in our Ghana Man series today, we take you on an adventure to the Canopy Walkway at the Kakum National Park. We have details of all that, including business, sports, entertainment, as well as international updates, all coming up in the next hour here on News Today. Stay with us. Many thanks for joining us here on News Today. My name is Kwabena Chenche Heneboatin. A very first story, and the Progressive People's Party, the PPP, has vowed to resist attempts by the Electoral Commission to prevent it from contesting in the upcoming November polls. Now, according to the party, the EC has failed to implement the political parties law, which allows the Commission to disqualify a party on grounds that the party has failed to establish or maintain national and regional as well as district office. Now, the party has also been speaking on the need for a clean and transparent process before, during, and after the 2016 general elections. Let's now get more now from my colleague Matilda Pomega, who was at this media briefing and just joined us now in studio with a lot more. So, Matilda, tell us much more about what the PPP means, that they are going to resist attempts by the EC to get to disqualify them from contesting in the upcoming polls.
So, according to the Progressive People's Party, the EC in recent times have been referring to the PPP and other political parties as they mentioned, they quoted some representatives of the Electoral Commission and the IE and Star Ghana, referring or defining active political parties as those who have been in existence since 1992. This is where they are raising concerns, because we all know that PPP came into being in 2012. So it means by that statement, the PPP is in a way disqualifying them, or in a way putting out or making such remarks to in a way to show that the PPP is not up there when it comes to putting all that it needs to put across with the requirements for all political parties. So they are raising these concerns, and they are asking the EC to refrain from making such statements. And they also went ahead to mention that, yes, when they came into being, they met all the requirements. They have their offices at the regional offices, they have the headquarters, they have all the structures that needs to be put in place that qualifies them as the political parties.
They have met the criteria.
They have met all the criteria, but the EC in a way is still referring to them as smaller parties, which is something they feel contravenes the law that makes provision for political parties in Ghana. So they have been raising some concerns about it, and a few other issues too that they've also been raising concerns about.
Right, let's take a listen to them now.
In a letter dated the 27th of August, 2015, and copied to General Secretaries of all political parties, the Electoral Commission assured political parties and Ghanaians in general that it was going to implement the Political Parties Law, Act 574 of 2000, effective 1st January 2016. It would also be recalled that in the year 2000, the Electoral Commission embarked on a similar nationwide assessment of the status of political parties to bring their operations in conformity with the constitutional provisions and the Political Parties Law. This exercise was repeated in 2014, again with no enforcement applied, even though the Commission is empowered to cancel the registration of a political party on the grounds that the party has refused, neglected, or failed to establish or maintain national, regional, and district offices. The Electoral Commission has, much to our disappointment, failed to enforce its own law when parties have not complied with the law. Even though the Commission is so empowered under Section 21(3) to order an independent audit of accounts of political parties, we are yet to see the Electoral Commission, since 1992, exercise its powers to enforce these laws and deregister non-compliant political parties, as promised by the chairperson. We are now in March 2016, and the promise was to have taken effect from January 2016. When these recommendations are implemented, we will then have a legal and formal basis to select active political parties for any political engagement. We find it rather unfortunate that some officials of the EC use phrases like participation in elections since 1992 to define active political parties. The PPP will resist any attempt by the Commission and any other entity that may use unorthodox criteria for assessing political parties. We believe that the use of parties with representation in Parliament by organizations such as the IEA, Star Ghana, some media houses, and now the EC to legitimize political parties is a constitutional aberration and an affront to the laws governing the conduct of political parties in Ghana.
Okay, so you just heard that particular soundbite. I still have here with me in studio Matilda Fomega, who went for that particular media briefing. She's been telling us a lot more about what the PPP has been saying. So, Matilda, again, you were saying that the PPP had been raising some other issues as regards the election, the November poll. So tell us much more about the other issues that were raised at this media briefing.
So, according to the PPP, they are proposing that moving forward towards the November polls, the EC has already started to implement some of the recommendations that came up across with regards to electoral reforms. And one of it is electronically sending the electoral results. So they are saying that the EC must not do this in isolation. There is a need for an independent auditors to be attached to this process, because the ongoing process leaves out the IPAC, it leaves out independent people to also know exactly what the EC is doing.
And the kind of data that's being transmitted.
That is being transmitted. Okay. So in order to ensure transparency and then credibility of these results that will be announced and by the end of the general elections, they are asking that an independent auditors will be attached to this process to ensure that the process is screened so that it wouldn't raise any issues again.
Right.
The EC cannot implement this exercise successfully without an audit component. We have a history where the EC could not and has not published the results of the verification process in the 2012 elections. We cannot leave this exercise to any chance for a possible manipulation of the ICT infrastructure. We therefore call on the EC to invite at least 2 auditing firms to be part of the process from the very beginning. The 2 selected auditing firms shall have full access to the IT platforms and the coding systems for an effective audit of the transmitted results. The 2 auditing firms shall also audit the results independently and be given the opportunity to cross-check the work of each other. This must be completed before the final declaration of results by the Electoral Commission.
That was Nyalote Bruhamon, the chairman of the Progressive People's Party, addressing the media in that media briefing that ended just a while ago. To some more stories now. And Joy News takes you on an adventure to the Canopy Walk at the Kakum National Park in a Ghana Month series. In our series today, right. So we're taking a break here on News Today. We'll return shortly with some more stories. Don't go away. Many thanks for staying here on News Today. To some more stories now, and in a Ghana Man series today, Joy News takes you on a tour of some of the most beautiful and famous attractions in the country. Now, established in 1995, the Kakum National Park offers one of the most exciting adventures in Ghana, a walk on bridges connecting 6 huge trees in the Kakum forest. Kwabna also Amprechum attempted a walk on the canopy, and amidst his fears, now reports.
The journey uphill begins from here. Get your ticket and proceed to the first rest stop. I am told it's a daunting walk up there. I am hoping I'm able to climb all the way up. Let's get into the journey to the Kakum National Park. The next stop is where tourists are educated on the history and importance of the park. Kakum was gazetted in 1991 and commissioned as a national park in 1994. The park is part of the Upper Guinean Forest, which stretches from Guinea-Bissau through Sierra Leone, Liberia, and ending in Ghana.
In olden days, it was called Upper Guinean Forest. It's now called Kakum National Park, and it has a total size of 360 square kilometers. The name was derived from Kakum River, a river who started from the reserve, and they named the park after the river. Yeah, the name Kakum comes about. It's about monkeys, the call of monkeys, Kiakum.
This is the approach to the third rest stop. There are 4 on the way to the canopy. It's really tiring. Let's take a little rest. After the short rest, it is time to soldier on. 4 rest stops later, we have arrived at the entrance to the canopy. It is time to walk on the canopy. We'll see if I'll be able to stand the test of time. We'll see if my cameraman will be able to walk on the canopy and take his shots. Okay. After some psyching by the guide, the climbing will begin. I managed to gather the courage to step on the bridge. So the instructions are, do not wobble, do not shake, and I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm trying as hard as I can not to be afraid of the height. But don't worry, nobody has fallen in before. And I'll actually get to the end of it. Some do not settle though. My guide speaks of the tales of wailing men and women who broke down midway.
Some people were scared of height. It's natural. People were screaming, crying on. But if they are kids, you can carry the kid on your shoulder and take the one out from the bridges. But if the one is adult, only option you can do that, you pamper the one to walk on slowly and gently and get out from the bridges.
While some are too scared to look down, others are more than happy to appreciate the vegetation below. If you manage to settle in, however, the view out there is breathtaking. The forest and platforms look absolutely beautiful. Look down and the splash of green is lovely. A look at the bridge gives a better appreciation of the canopy walkway. It's been wobbly and shaky. How was the walk for our tourists?
It's a very nice place to go here, and I really appreciate the view, and yeah, it's really stunning.
How did you feel walking over? Were you scared?
No, actually not, because I'm climbing at home, so I really enjoyed the heights again, because here it's during the Harmattan I didn't have a lot of time to go hiking, so I really enjoyed it.
In 350 meters, 7 bridges, 6 platforms. That is what the canopy walkway of the Kakum National Park has to offer. And I must say, it's been very exhilarating. Well, I made it, and I think it is worth taking the trip. Ghana has a lot to offer in terms of tourism, and the Kakum National Park, especially the canopy walk, is something you should take advantage of. For Joy News, Kobna Osu Amprechum.
Here in Accra, my name is Kwabena Chenche, and you're still watching News Today. To some more stories now, and a lot more needs to be done to prevent last year's disaster from recurring after heavy rains in the capital. Now, that's according to an engineer and registrar of the Engineering Council of Ghana, Wise Ametefe. According to him, a number of interventions put in place by government will help minimize the impact of any likely recurrence of last year's incident, but won't hardly prevent it completely. Now, he says a lot more needs to be done if we are to protect lives and property.
Currently, the drainage improvement works are being looked at, are being done. If you move around the city, you see that channels are being widened and deepened. Like the Odo, you see that they are dredging the Odo. They've started dredging sections of the Odo, let's say critical sections of the Odo. Starting from the Kole Lagoon, there is some dredging going on. You come to Circle, dredging is going on. You go to Caprice, dredging is going on. These are some critical areas along the Odo which is experiencing dredging. Now, when you move in hinterland, some channels have also been opened up and getting them ready for flood management. But this is not all. I enumerated the problems. One critical thing we have to look at is how we now carry out the planning of the city to be able to retain some of the water outside and within our homes. Now, right now, if you get to most of the homes, you see that everybody is ending up paving his house. So it means every little drop of water is coming into the system. Meanwhile, the existing system that is available cannot contain the volume of water that is coming up. So the planning should go in the direction of trying to have measures or policies so that people can now begin to plan their houses, have greens in their houses, retain or what you call harvest some of the water in their homes, and then while the city is expanding towards the upstreams of the river basins, we now begin to identify areas where we can store some of this runoff so that we don't allow all the water to come to the city at the same time thereby causing flooding.
Now, as Ghana joins the world in celebrating the Day of Consumer Rights, the Executive Director of the Consumer Protection Agency is calling for the speedy passage of the Consumer Rights Bill in the country. According to him, the passage of the bill will empower the citizenry and compel utility service providers to be more efficient in the delivery of their services.
We cannot have a nation where mandates are not executed to its best performance. But I will not say that they haven't been doing certain things. They have, but like the song goes, they've done their best, but their best is not good enough.
What do you think is the biggest challenge of the Consumer Protection Agency? I'm speaking of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission.
Let's not make it the agency. Let's say the protection of the consumer in Ghana.
Okay, so what is the biggest challenge in that?
The biggest challenge is the fact that the Consumer Rights Bill hasn't been passed. Fortunately, I would say kudos to His Excellency and his cabinet, who has approved the bill in cabinet. Now the bill rests in the bosom of the Ministry of Trade, a department called the Domestic Trade, and I think they are the ones who are dragging their feet a little bit. But I engaged the Minister, Honorable Spiogabra, and I can say that with all certainty that he is also very, very much interested that when I engaged him, he didn't understand why the department was delaying. So we are waiting for the department to now send it to Parliament for us to look at it, how it's going to be passed into law. Like I said, Cabinet has already approved it. So if you're a consumer, you know that if you have this information at your disposal, whereby nobody has the right to disenfranchise you as a consumer, why would you allow that to happen? As an individual consumer, your most powerful weapon is your money. If somebody disrespects you, you don't do business with them.
I'm listening, Mr. Kapito. I'm listening. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So basically, laws are made, yes, to be enforced by regulators, and also the citizenry should be able to also to say that this is my right. It is my right to do A, B, C, D. It's as simple as that. I mean, I'm not going to fight your right for you until you fight it yourself. But if the law in Ghana says that everybody who is 18 years and of sound mind is allowed to vote, how can anybody disenfranchise anybody who is 18 years and of a sound mind to vote? So that is basically what the law says. So you will be given the information yourself. The law says that this is how things should go. If you don't have it, if you have any redress, you have the right to go to court. As we are in court, I don't understand why Ghanaians always feel some individual should carry on what is their best for them also to enforce.
You're watching News Today here on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. We're taking a break. We'll return shortly with some more stories. Don't go away. And now time for some business here. And the Finance Ministry's quest to pay only public sector workers who are productive is taking shape. The ministry is fast-tracking work to computerize the payment of public sector workers by the end of this month. But could this be the answer to the challenge of ghost names after several policies failed to yield the desired result? George Rafi tells us more.
Computerization of the payment of public sector workers is one of several measures that the Finance Ministry is championing to help reduce the wage bill and total compensation for public sector workers. According to the 2016 budget, government is planning to spend a little over 14 billion Ghana cedi as total compensation for public sector workers, the largest expenditure item on government's budget for this year. This is why government is worried, especially looking at the fact that most of these workers might not exist at all, or they are not working. A look at the 2016 budget implementation instruction also indicates that, apart from the ministries, all workers of subvented government agencies should be migrated onto the computerized payroll by the end of this month, a move the ministry believes could go a long way to reduce the ghost names on the wage bill. The ministry has also put in place some measures that will scrutinize the payment of some allowances for public sector workers and also recruitment of new personnel to replace persons who are going on retirement for essential ministries. The ministry has also deployed the use of the electronic SPV system by the Controller and Accountant General's Department that will validate every payment made by every ministry in the country. The Finance Ministry believes that all these measures will go a long way to reduce the wage bill drastically.
That was George Wiafe's report, and the country's decision to sign on to the IMF program was seen as a development that could help stabilize the economy. But almost a year down the line, some analysts continue to criticize the program for failing to deliver expected outcome. But economist Professor Peter Kote disagrees.
Look at the period before the fund program came on board and now. Let's just take the exchange rate, for instance. You realize we were hovering around 4 point something, and current, what is the exchange rate? So it tells you the fund program has brought some stability, because at that point when the fund came in, we were virtually on our knees. Funds were not coming in. The lack of confidence factor has hit us so hard that the international community were not willing to lend to this country. And I believe the coming on board of the IMF, although has brought quite a lot of hardships, has brought some confidence. Once you have the IMF behind you trying to ensure that you do what is right, it brings some confidence back into the economy. Then if you look at the deficit situation, from 12%, it's quite difficult to move from 12% of GDP to 5.3%. It's quite a difficult one, but through the fund program, that has been achieved. Look at the wage bill, for instance, before the fund, during the era before the fund came on board, it was really high. But if you look at it now, realize it's being contained in some way. So the fund, there's more room for improvement in my view, but I think their coming on board has also helped us to be where we are.
And that will be it for business. But for more, you can join me on the marketplace at exactly 1 p.m. My name is John Kojo Amwako. Stay. Many thanks for staying on news today. To some more stories now. And the steering committee chair of Star Ghana, Professor Akila Kwastoy, has charged political parties to address issues of national interest rather than politicizing situations. Now, he said there's a signing ceremony where 35 organizations have been given grants totaling $2.6 million to assist in their preparations towards the November post. Jawunyan signed on behalf of the multimedia group and is now in studio with me to tell us much more about what really transpired earlier today. So, Jaw, tell us much more about this package multimedia got onto. What is in it and what are we expected to do?
Well, Star Ghana is mainly a funding organization, but it's not just funding. It's not just throwing money around. It's throwing the money around to a specific purpose, a specific target. Now, for the multimedia group, we've already started over the past in the elections. We've been talking about issue-based politics. We've been talking about issue-based campaigning, and we're going to continue that with the funding that we are getting from Star Ghana. We're going into the 5 poorest districts in the country, and we're going to look at the issues that for them would determine the kind of politics we practice in the country, the kind of policies that they want the power holders to actually implement to change their lives for the better. So for Multimedia Group, true, we are getting funding, but more than the funding, we are getting a vast wealth of experience when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to making sure that we have stories that impact, stories that change situations, not just a particular situation, but stories that can influence policy and actually change the way we run certain aspects of our economy in the country.
I see. So you mentioned that the 35 organizations got access to these funds. Is this all? Or?
Well, let me break down a little bit for you for the 35. The call or the proposals that were sent out were divided into 3 sections. We had the open call, strategic call, and the media call. Now, the open call was mainly targeted at civil society organizations. I'm talking about the CDDs, the Imani Ghanas, and so on and so forth. And the strategic call was for actually a 2-year period where they're looking at actually making changes to certain policies, especially when it comes to the voter registration, which has become a big issue for this political year. Yeah. And also when it comes to election adjudication. Before the 2012 elections, our electoral laws had never really been put to the test, and the adjudication process that we saw, that 8-month-long court case, actually showed us that we need to do a lot more when it comes to tightening up the laws when it comes in regards to the elections. And I know that the Legal Resources Center, for instance, is doing a 2-year project to try and tighten up when it comes to looking for legal redress to electoral issues. Even after the 2012 elections, we know that I think every single primaries for every single political party for this 2016 election has had a court case or another around it. There's been injunctions flying left, right, and center. So they want to look at tightening up that sector. Then you also have the media call, which is where we're coming in. It's looking at how you can leverage the media, the voice that the media gives to the voiceless, and trying to take it a step further to influence change. So we have been making a lot of noise for people who otherwise would not be heard by people in higher position, but for Star Ghana and for multimedia, well, the gap we want to bridge is changing those voices into action, and that is the kind of projects that multimedia will be running for the 2016 election call. Right.
Many thanks for that update, Jahunyan, and that was my colleague Jahunyan, who just returned from that signing ceremony with Star Ghana. We're taking a break here on News Today. When we come back, we'll bring you some international updates. Stay with us. And that'll be all for News Today here on your Joy News channel on Multi TV. Remember to visit www.myjoyonline.com for a lot more news. John Omakon is standing by with the marketplace. Many thanks for your company. My name is Kwabna Chenche Hineboating.